So what we've done then effectively really is we've overcomplicated our laws, added layers and layers to existing ones that weren't necessary. We've changed things that weren't broken in some cases. This lack of integrity that you talk of as well, I guess, in terms of how some of the professional people have acted on behalf of investors, that also hasn't helped. How do we go about repairing this 30 or 40 years of damage that we've done?
It's pretty slowly, I think. I think the first thing is when it comes to legislation, I don't think Parliament's the right place to do it. Parliament's certainly the right place to decide that there's a problem. But it seems to me that rather than have the acts being drafted by people who just sit around and pull what they think are good ideas, it really needs an act really needs to go to somebody who knows what he's doing or she's doing. As the British Parliament used Pollock and Chalmers in those acts, and in many other people in many other acts, and ask them to look at the law as it is, and just say, do we need any changes? We've got a very good example at present. We've got the Trustee Act being considered by a law reform committee. None of the people on that, they're all very good lawyers, but none of them are proven trust lawyers. They don't have the background. And it makes you wonder why people like that even have to take a job like that on. It would be much better to go to somebody who's done a lot of work in the field over a long period of time, who's kept up with all the reading, and can probably report that, well, actually there's really nothing wrong with the Trustee Act, and you might be able to tweak a few things that are associated with it, like the perpetuity period, but beyond that, leave it alone. And Lord Neuberger, who was the Master of the Rolls in England, the head of the court system, gave a lecture on law reform not so long ago, and he said basically the principle should be that if you've got legislation and that it's clear, it's easily understood, it's got a long history, the case law doesn't have any trouble deciding what the courts don't have any trouble deciding what the law is, then leave it alone. And that's such good advice. But it's very hard to get anybody around this neck of the woods to see that.
So what ought we to do? I mean, do we need the government to appoint a handful of people, to lawyers and other experts, to have a look at this and overhaul things, or will that just make things worse? I mean, how should we go about it?
Well, in a lot of cases you could strip back the accretions that have occurred over the last 30 or 40 years and look at what you had, and then decide whether there was anything that needed to be added to it at all. I think in a lot of cases it would work. You would probably find it worked better before. But it's just that, you see, the Inland Revenue were very bad over a long period of time. They wouldn't pile in after the difficult targets. Even now, the Commissioner announced what a good result he thought they'd had on these repo deal cases. Now, these things were nothing less than an assault on the New Zealand financial system by the banks. They were the biggest tax avoidance cases in the world. Now, that could have occurred in a tiny economy like ours, and not in the United States. They haven't had anything bigger over there. Is pretty barefaced, and anybody looking at those would have said, well, these things have got no commercial purpose beyond the banks being able to screw the New Zealand tax system. And it just stands out that you shouldn't be doing it. But accountants were in behind there, eminent accountants who were saying, well, the bank's now got a choice. It could pay tax at 5%, but maybe it should pay tax at 15% because that might look better. You wonder what the devil's going on, because the tax rate's actually 30%, and this sort of thing is then settled by the revenue at apparently about 80% of the total of the tax and penalties and interest owing, which means that somewhere along the line banks were gifted hundreds of millions of dollars by the Inland Revenue because it didn't have the fortitude to do what it should have done. And that's more money that has to be taken out of the either borrowed or taken from other taxpayers or taken out of the hospital system or whatever. So it just goes on, and people don't do their jobs.